Hi everyone, I'm Charlene Pemberton, and I'm excited to guide you on your financial journey. Whether you're looking to save, invest, or plan for the future, you're in the right place. Get ready for expert advice on budgeting, investment strategies, debt management, and real-life success stories that will inspire you to take control of your finances. Join me as we break down complex financial topics into easy to understand lessons, empowering you to navigate your financial future with confidence. Welcome to Navigating Your Finances, your trusted resource for mastering your money and achieving financial freedom. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Navigating Your Finances. I'm your host, Charlene Pemberton, and I am a financial educator and a former financial advisor and have been in the financial industry for about 9 years. And I'm coming to you today just for yet another topic on navigating your finances, helping you to do better with your financial situation. Today, we're going to be focusing on retirement account basics. This is an important topic because if you should live so long, you're going to be retiring. So I'm going to be covering some ideas with regard to retirement accounts, helping you to understand the different types of retirement accounts, and just explaining what I mean by retirement accounts from the beginning of things. So when I talk about retirement accounts, I'm talking about buckets or containers for investing toward retirement. And each container has different tax implications. And you can use different investment types, and they can be deposited in each container. So some of the common containers that you hear about are 401ks or 403bs, which are retirement accounts that are offered by employers. 401ks are offered by businesses that operate for profit. 403bs are offered by educational systems or nonprofit organizations or companies. So that's just the distinguishing between the same type of account. They have the same type of tax implications, but one is offered to those that are employed with profit companies, and then the other is for school systems and nonprofit companies. And the numbers are not necessarily random. They are actually the names of the tax codes that define the tax rules for contributions and withdrawals from these containers. And I'm calling them containers because a 401k can hold mutual funds, stocks, bonds, different kinds of investments. So think of them as like I said, a container or a basket. And then your investments are what you put in them. So, and then that container has certain tax codes or rules associated with them. So the other thing, there's some common ones, 401k, 403bs. There's the traditional IRAs, which have the same tax rules as a 401k, but they're more like individual or private accounts that people set up for themselves. Then you have Roth accounts. Companies offer Roth 401ks right now. And then you also have a Roth IRA, an individual retirement account. So then these are also named after Roth, the politician that championed these tax codes. So the whole idea of a Roth container is that you put money in to the account after tax dollars that have been taxed already. You put those into a Roth 401k or Roth individual retirement account, And then once you start taking the money out, you're taking it out the your main investment, the part that the principal that you put in, you're taking that out tax free, and then the other part, the investment part, is being taken out tax deferred. So that's the difference between 401ks and Roth 401ks. So 401ks and 403bs, you're putting money in before it's taxed. And then when you're taking it out, Uncle Sam's going to get his. So then you're going to be taxed on that money. When I was in the industry, I don't know how many people I encountered that would ask, well, how is it that I can't be taxed on this money? I don't know of a way that you can because you weren't taxed when you put it in. So, as I said, when you take it out, you're going to be taxed, okay? So, the other container that I want to mention is a rollover IRA. And that is created and used to roll over your 401k money when you leave a company. And it is the best practice to roll that money over so that you can manage it yourselves. You'll get a lot of more investment opportunity because it becomes an individual retirement account again, unlike a 401k, an employee sponsored account. And then you'll have control over that money because once you leave a company, your 401k has some restrictions on it, and you're only limiting yourself to the investments that the company offers. Once you separate from a company, you should set up a rollover IRA and you should move that money into the IRA so that you can manage it, that you can withdraw from it as you see fit. That's the best way to handle 401k money when you leave. So I'm going to talk a little bit about your employer plans and some of the benefits of it, and then one of the downfalls, or just a facts of it. Okay. So with employer plans, usually you'll have an employer match. For example, a lot of employers will say, if you invest 3% of your annual income, we will match that 3%. So what I recommend that you do is that you start a 401k as soon as you can with an employer. Once you join an employer, some of them will have a 3-month or 6-month grace period before you're able to invest in the 401k. But I recommend that as soon as you can, you invest as much as you can into your 401k, taking into account your living expenses and everything, not dismissing any of that. And if you can't invest much, at least try to invest enough to take advantage of the employer match. Like I said, typically it's about 3%. Some employers offer more than as up to 6% of your salary. But if you don't take advantage of any of that, you're leaving money on the table, and you never want to leave money on the table. If they're offering it to you, try your best to at least invest enough to take advantage of it. Again, with your employer plans, as I said, it's tax deferred accumulation. So you're not taxed as the money is growing, as the investment is growing. And we'll talk a little bit more later about when you're taxed. And then some employer plans, they allow you to make loans. And basically, you're lending to yourself under those circumstances. So you're the lender and the borrower, which is a decent situation. They'll have their own rules for putting the money back. And if you owe a loan when you separate from a company, they will deduct that loan balance from your 401k monies, if once you move the monies. So just be aware of that. And then one fact of a 401k is they have limited investment options. I'm going to refer to the TSP guidelines to just kind of let you know what kind of options you'll typically have in an employer account. You will have typically something comparable to the G fund, which is like uh, government securities for Treasury, but it's usually bonds, bond funds, or some guaranteed steady interest fund. You'll have a fund like that in your employer plan. Then you'll also have a fund in the employer plan that is like fixed income, which is a group of bonds, and it follows perhaps a bond index. Then you'll have something that it tracks with common stock or the S&P 500. And these are large or mid-sized companies that have long-term growth. And then you'll have like perhaps a small cap fund, and that is for small or mid-sized company, and they have a higher potential of growth. But also, when you have a higher potential for growth, you have a higher potential for risk. And then you might have something comparable to the I fund, which is an international exposure fund, and it's based on like an international index. So those are the types of funds you will typically have available in your employer account to choose from. But in contrast to your employer account, there are traditional IRAs or Roth IRAs or rollover IRAs, in which those IRA stands for individual retirement account. And when you have an individual account, you have more investment options. But with an individual traditional IRA or Roth IRA, you typically will have lower contribution limits, which kind of brings us to our next topic on these retirement account basics. And I'm going to talk a little bit. No, I'm going to talk first about the withdrawal rules for these different types of accounts. So first you'll have the withdrawal rules for 401k, 403b, a traditional, and a rollover IRAs. All of these kind of go under the 401k tax code, if you will. So what you have is, if you withdraw from these accounts, because these accounts are intended for retirement. So if you withdraw from these accounts before 59 and a half, you will suffer a 10% penalty on what you withdraw, as well as the is considered ordinary income. So then you will be taxed on it, plus a 10% penalty. So when you withdraw, I know of people that withdraw from these accounts, pretty regularly, or kind of look at them as an emergency fund, and it's really not a good idea to do that. Build an emergency fund in a savings account or something of that nature, and use it for that purpose. Your IRAs or your retirement accounts should not be used for emergency funds. Although, if there's something catastrophic, there are some special conditions under which they will let hardship conditions under which they'll let you withdraw without penalty. But you have to state what that is, and they have to concur with the fact that it's in fact an emergency. Like, for instance, I think one of them's a down payment on a home or loss of a job, those kinds of things, but they consider them exceptions for not getting that 10% penalty. But you still are going to pay ordinary income tax on that withdrawal. Now, you do not have to withdraw from these accounts for a long period of time. You can start withdrawing without penalty at 59 and a half. But like I said earlier, Uncle Sam's going to come for his money. So there's this concept called required minimum distributions. And they are, and you probably have heard the term RMDs. Well, that's when Uncle Sam says, okay, that's enough of you sitting on that money. Now you're going to have to start giving me a minimum amount of it so that you can pay, I can get my share of the taxes. So starting at 73, for those that were born from 1951 to 1959, starting at 73, you will be required to take a minimum distribution. And that amount is a percentage of the fund, and that will be made clear to you if you have someone advising you on the fund, or it is common knowledge. You could Google it, but you're going to get some notification. Trust me, because Uncle Sam knows. You're going to get some notification that you are due to pay a requirement minimum distribution. And for those that were born in 1960 and after, you'll get that notice at age 75. So in recent years, the past recent years, they have been increasing that age. Previously, it was 70 and a half that you had to start doing these distributions. So the government has been gracious and has started increasing the age, which they're getting to the point, have gotten to the point that 75 is the age for those born 60 and over. That's the good news. The challenging news is that you're going to have to start withdrawing and paying taxes on the money. Okay. So those are the withdrawal rules for 401ks, 403bs, traditional IRAs, and rollover IRAs. Now let's look at the withdrawal rules for Roth accounts. And this is Roth 401ks as well as Roth individual retirement accounts. Now, you can withdraw what you put in, the contributions, tax-free and penalty-free at any time. Because I mentioned to you earlier, the money that you put in has already been taxed. So that's just like your after-tax income. You put it in a Roth, it'll grow tax deferred. So that money, you can pull that out at any time. This is your contribution money that has already been taxed. However, the earnings can be withdrawn without penalty, just like the 401k money, at 59 and a half, because the earnings are tax deferred. You're not getting needing to pay tax on those earnings until you start to withdraw them. The other stipulation is that you can only withdraw if the account has been open for at least 5 years. So what that says is that it's wise to open a Roth IRA early while you're still working and starting to put money in there, because then you'll have a balance of accounts between accounts that you invested in with before tax dollars and an account you invested in like a 401k with before tax dollars, 401k, and then Roth after tax dollars. And so the tax implications will kind of weigh out once balance out once you start removing the money. One other topic that I have to cover with regard to this is just that all of these accounts have contribution limits, okay? So those limits change every year, so you want to be aware of what they are. Now, for 2026, your 401k and your Roth 401k, and this limit does not include your employer contribution, okay? So this is just the contribution that you're making. If you're 50 and under, you can put as much as $24,500 into a 401k or Roth 401k for the year 2026. If you're 60 to 63, they have a bump up for you of about 11,000 $250. It looks like about $11,250. So you have your upper limit for 2026 if you're between the ages of 60 and 63. This is to encourage that age group to start socking money away. So this is $35,750. That is the max amount you can contribute to a 401k or Roth 401k for 2026. Then last, we have 64 plus. They can contribute as much as $32,500. So that's like $8,000 more than those that are 50 or under. So they have a bump up as long as you're above 50, okay, for your contributions. All right, so those are the employer accounts. And then the Roth and traditional IRA have lower contribution limits. If you're 50 and under, you can only contribute $7,500 for the year 2026. And then for your Roth IRA, Roth and traditional IRA, if you're over 50, you can contribute $8,600. Now, when we talk about the year 2026, you have the entire year 2026 when you're talking about the individual retirement accounts, all the way up until you file your taxes for 2026. So all the way up to April 15th, or when you file your taxes. You file before April 15th, you have until the time you submit your taxes to make that contribution of $7,500 if you're under 50 or under, and $8,600 if you're over 50. Now, let me make a distinguishing characteristic. The 401k and the Roth 401k, the employer plans, that's your calendar year. So from January 2026 through December 2026, you can sock away as much as those limits that I mentioned, and I'll mention them again. 50 and under, $24,500 between January 2026 and December 2026. And time is moving fast. We're already nearly halfway through 2026. So hopefully you have been taking advantage of your employer account. Then for those that are 60 to 63, between January and December 2026, you can put in up to $35,750 into your 401k or your Roth 401k. And then again, those 50 to 59 and over 64, you can put in $32,500. I think I missed the 50 to 59 earlier, so I apologize for that. So the 32,500 is for those over 64 and those between 50 and 59 years old. Okay. And then lastly, with involving contributions, your rollover IRA, because that's really your bucket for when you change employers or when you retire, you can roll money that was in your employer-sponsored plans into a rollover IRA. So there are really no contribution limits, if you will, because you're not directly contributing to a rollover IRA. It's just a smart practice when you separate from employers. So those are the things that I wanted to share with regard to retirement accounts. And again, what I want to say is that if you listen and you have questions, please don't hesitate to put those questions in the comments. I know this is a lot of information, But I want to leave you with this thought that was shared with me when I was in the industry. Retirement should be most likely in your path, I would guess. So when you think about different things you save for, right? You save for a house, and then for the balance of that house, you can get a loan. Your children's education. If you don't have enough saved, you can get a loan. But you cannot go into a bank and say, I need a loan for retirement. So it behooves us to prepare for our retirement as best we can, because the time is coming and we want to be able to support and have a retirement that we deserve. And that comes with us doing planning way in advance, so that the monies that we do put toward retirement have the opportunity to grow over time. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Thank you for listening, and have a great day. Don't miss out on valuable insights. Subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and become part of our community dedicated to financial success. Let's embark on this financial journey together. See you in the next episode.